So just before we get started, I wanted to show you the tools that I use to tape off the gun. One of my techniques is I will get an X-Acto knife, and you've got one of these cutting mats that basically you can cut on them, and it'll, you know, the blade will penetrate, but it just closes back up so you can use it over and over again. And usually in these things, what I would recommend is cut in the same direction, because if you cut this way and then you start cutting this way, pieces start to come up and things like that. So, but what I do is I take a piece of tape like this, pull that off. I'll lay this down here. Let me get this off here first. Alright, so lay this piece of tape down like this, and then I'll make my edges. I'll come in here and make my edges like that. And I'll just save those. And I try to use everything that I have. This edge is pretty straight. I don't think I need to straighten it off, but I will. And anyways, what I end up doing is creating strips like this, or maybe something, you know, depending on the thickness that you have. Like for instance, in this piece here, you've got this thickness here. So it might be easy to try to cut it to this, and then so you can get the edge, you know, use this straight edge here for this straight edge here, and then it won't matter if your cut's a little wobbly in here, because you just fold this over, and the next piece you could just put on top of that and fold it over here, and then you're good. So what I would do is something where I would just maybe take a piece that's relatively close to the same and just draw my straight edge, pull this piece of tape up like that, and then I would go ahead and lay this in here. So one last thing I wanted to say was, it's really important when you do these rebuilds or these mods or these paint jobs is that you keep track of your screws. While putting this thing back together, I realized that these screws that went into the stock are actually longer than the ones that went into this attachment piece, into these 4 spots right here. The problem is normally they'll work, but if you use the longer screws in a shorter hole, and if it's like on the outside of a gun, like for instance on a rail, I used the longer screws on accident, because usually the rail's a thinner thing, so use the shorter screws. But what I did is I actually used longer screws on accident, and I put them in, and they fought me a little bit, and I just kind of pushed them through because I thought it was just the plastic. But what was happening is they actually bored through to the other side, and now there's like, you know, holes on the other side, and it just doesn't look good. So definitely be sure to keep track of your screws and know where they're going to go when you rebuild your Nerf gun. So this is what they look like after about 20 minutes. If you read on the can, it says that this stuff sets up after about 20 minutes, and you can pick it up and you can touch it. But I would definitely recommend to let this dry for a minimum of 24 hours after you paint it. If you can't help yourself and you want to put the stock on and start playing with it, you know, no guarantees on how strong this finish will be. But you can see how it's already flattened out, and before, when this was really glossy and there was like kind of a lot of orange peel in there, you can see that that is all gone, and the stuff just flattens out real nice, and it looks great. So this is why we like that paint so much, because it just goes on and it just flattens out against, and you can still, like when you don't put on too much, like I wouldn't even need to put on a second coat, I don't think, on this. You probably could if you wanted to, but I don't think you need it. But the good thing about it is when you put it on thin, you can still pick up these details pretty well, which is interesting, because this looks like a pretty neat stock now that it's all black. So we're gonna let this dry overnight for 24 hours, and then we're gonna slap it back together. So we'll check back then. One of the problems I have with this sometimes is I'll use, instead of big long pieces, I'll use tiny pieces to pick up, to get, you know, to cover things, and it can be problematic, as you can see here, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to get the tape off. So instead of you sitting here watching me struggle with all this tape, I'm going to cut back when I get the rest of it peeled off. So we'll be back momentarily. Real quick here, I just wanted to show you the 2 guns that I had done with this particular brand of paint. I can't comment on how many guns I can get out of this can, because I basically had this paint left over from another project, and I just decided to use it on this barricade right here. And I was able to get this gun done, and then the majority of this gun done with another can, and then I ended up buying a new can to do some other stuff. So I think you could definitely get, you know, 3 guns or more, you know, out of a can, you know, depending if you just do a single coat or whatnot. But anyways, this is just, you know, how well this stuff holds up. These guns have been out a few times, and you know, it's holding up pretty well. So there's a little bit of damage there, a little bit there, scuff marks and things like that. But we went ahead and painted all this stuff here. And then this is the most recent one that we just finished here, this strife. So I just really like the way this thing finishes off. It's so clean. And then I had mentioned something about it being doughy, and I think so. I guess what I was talking about is just pretty much like right in here. You know, there's these fine little details of this like digital camo stuff that was on the strife, and I kind of went a little thick with the paint, and that kind of got a little bit lost, which I don't think is too much to ask for, because these things are so thin. You know, they're not really raised up off of the gun too much. So, but detail wise, if you do have something like that, you might want to just make sure that you go a little bit thinner with your coats. So for the most part, this paint is amazing. I mean, really like it. So let's see the other side here. Here's a little picture of what the strife looks like with the Super Soaker stock, and I'll show a quick picture of what the barricade looks like here next. So here's the barricade. Doesn't quite look as good since you know, we're orange and black on this gun. That's it for now. We hope you liked the video. If you do, please comment, like, and subscribe, and thanks a bunch for watching.